Hello, we're talking batteries today, specifically these Tattu 4S batteries for mini quads. But before we get into it, a quick reminder to like or dislike this video if you didn't like it, comment down below, click on the subscribe button, and don't forget to click that little bell which tells you when I'm uploading stuff. And take risks, because if you win you'll be happy, if you lose you'll be wise, because at least some of those will help me out. Anyway, these batteries. I mention these because I talked to a Tattu representative that sells through Amazon in the UK, which very handy if you're in Amazon Prime like me, you can get them next day. And we've got two sizes here, the 1300 and the 1550, in 45C for the 1300 and 75C for the 1550. So the reason I thought that would be useful is that I currently use these little Nanotech 1.3 and they are a 45 to 90C discharge. I can never tell how accurate the discharge is on these, but they've lasted okay. I mean, these are now coming up to 3 years old, but they've been okay. Just recently I flew the Hobbymate Comet for like 11 minutes, being really very gentle on these, but generally I get like, 2 to 3 minutes of hard flying. But there's a couple of exceptions to this. So when I'm dealing with these little lightweight race quads, like this is the Coppice 2, which I absolutely loved. This flew wonderfully, and even on those little old 1300 batteries really nicely. But then I look at something more heavyweight. This is the Diatone GT200S I reviewed in 2017. It's not quite 2 years ago because it was November. But this is a heavy beast. Aside from being physically heavy, look at these motors. These are huge. 2306, 2450 kV, but they feel like quite a size up. And I remember flying this and the amp draw on this was really bad. Like the batteries are like sucked away to nothing. So I thought in some circumstances it's better to fly bigger batteries. Now I've always had 1300s because I've always had 1300s. I've been using the same knot for ages. But I thought it'd be interesting to see what the difference is between flying a light battery and a heavier battery on a lightweight quad and then doing the same on the heavier quad. Because of course where you've got a larger battery capacity, so for example if I've got a 1000 milliamp battery at 10C, then I can pull 10 amps, but if I've got a 2000 milliamp battery at 10C it can pull 20 amps. So the size of the battery has an impact, and that amp pull can be a bottleneck for the power of your quad. So physically there's not much difference between them, at least in one of the dimensions. The difference they are is the thickness. The 1550 being a bit thicker than the 1300, but there's not a world of difference in the weight, so it could just be that I'm a bit behind the times. I should be flying 1500s, but yeah, let's go and test them. I'm going to charge these up. I'm probably going to get rid of these. I don't particularly like these balance connector things. But yeah, we'll go out, we'll fly it on the lightweight, and then we'll fly it on the chunky one, and we'll see what sort of difference we notice. So here we are going on the Coppice 2, and it is loaded as well with the GoPro Session to give a proper idea of what we've got. Obviously I'm flying 3 different flights here, so they won't all sync up, but the idea is just to look at them in a sort of typical usage and see how the battery feels. So I start off by sort of going along the field at moderate sort of speed, and then when I go back down this way I'm opening it up and trying to get some full throttle here. So we see the battery suffer a bit with the Tattu 1300 going down to 14 volts, the 1550 at 13.3. And we've got a couple of then full throttle punch outs. One to get over the tree here, where you'll see once again the battery get tortured. The Tattu 1300 seems to suffer the worst of all these ones, even than the older Nanotechs. And we should have another punch out now where I'm trying to go up and do sort of a little inverted yaw spin, which gets the smaller batteries into the 13s with the larger 1550 going into the low 15s. The difference here seems to be that the newer batteries seem to be able to recover voltage even when you dip right down into sort of a serious sort of voltage sag there. It comes back up again. So I kind of find that the Nanotech is doing a fairly good job. I mean, as I said, it's nearly 3 years old, this battery, and yet it's managing to go round okay. When it depletes, it's slower to recover. The Tattu 1300 seems to sag more under load, but does recover faster, with the Tattu 1550 certainly being the best of the bunch. So it doesn't sag as much. It seems to have more in reserve, and of course manages to still recover quickly when it does get into a sag situation. Now, as far as the weight goes, I mean, there's not an awful lot of difference in these batteries. I was flying along with the heavier 1550 thinking, do I notice the difference? Can I feel it? I kind of thought maybe I can feel something, but I had to then think, is that really it, or is this my imagination that's really I'm thinking? And I'm not sure, to be honest, on this one. If there is something there, it's tiny. I can kind of convince myself that I saw something or felt something, but whether it really happened is another point of view. So as we're getting into, close to the 3 minutes now, the two 1300 batteries they've kind of had it. So I'm now being very gentle, and as I'm sort of coming into landing, you can see them recover up a bit. With the 1550, and I'm still sort of flying along, doing more stuff, and I'm certainly getting at least another good 30 seconds of a sort of actual proper flying time. The others have now jumped back up to 14.7. They were sort of consistently around the 14.2, 14.3 mark under not much load, so any proper load really put them into deficit. And at this point, we now see the 1550 starting to sag a little bit, and it's like under sort of more regular load. It's looking at about 14.4, so I'm bringing that down as well, and that's already recovered back up to 14.8. You'll see there. So if we look at the still images for my landing, we landed at around 3.5 minutes, but really we got about 3 minutes of decent flight out of them. Whereas the 1550, we're coming down a little bit closer to the 4 minute mark, but I felt we had a lot more actual decent flying time out of it. So let's spin forward a few days now, because of course only having one set of these batteries, I couldn't do this in the same day. I had to go back and charge up and then wait for a decent day. So this is on the Diatone GT200S, which is the heavier, or I don't know if they're physically heavier, but I would certainly say more amp heavy of the quads. And I really notice this when we do the full speed section. So this is just sort of moderate speed. And when I come back on full throttle here, I have never seen sag in battery like this. If we look at the Nanotech, we are down to 12.4, 12.2, and 11.9 I got to on that Tattu 1300, which is shocking. And that is not so much a reflection on these batteries are rubbish, it's the fact that this quad will just pull so much power. I have to say, it didn't feel massively fast. I get the feeling that up to a certain point it's going fast, after that point it's just pulling power. So it's a similar story, I feel. Full throttle maneuvers they have more of an impact on this quad. They are pulling down into the 13s quite quickly. And once again, you see the new batteries recovering better. The Tattu 1300 is not doing quite so well, and I feel that's because of the C rating, and the 1550 is doing best of all. So it's managing to cope better with the amps I'm pulling on the general flying, and it's also recovering better after we put it into some sort of voltage sag after doing some sort of high throttle maneuver. Now on this quad, which is, I mean, it is physically heavy. I haven't actually measured it. I mean, that's using too much actual science there. It just feels heavier. But on this quad, what I did notice is that putting the larger 1550 battery on made no difference at all in the feel of flying. And I guess that's part of it feeling heavier anyway. It's not quite so lightweight. It's not quite so agile as the Coppice, and having a larger battery on didn't make a jot of difference in my opinion to how it felt. You notice we've got quite a big deficit in voltage. I expected to get up and down the field at this point, and we're starting to jump into very low 14 volt sort of territory, and as such I've backed off
a bit on the smaller battery. So you see I'm still flying faster on the 1550. It's kind of overtaken where they were going, and I kind of feel like I need to land on the 1300s where the 1550 is still going happily. So you'll see a little bit of recovery here on the 1300s, sort of back up to the sort of 14.6, 14.7. The 1550, I've got a little bit more flying to do. Again, it's not massive. Don't expect to put a battery in that's a little bit bigger and get an extra minute out. But I generally thought I get at least 30 seconds of extra proper flying as opposed to, just hovering around, which is, pretty good, bearing in mind we're only talking about another 200 odd milliamps. So what's that? It's over 10%, but I haven't worked out what that 10% is in terms of flying time. So we've got a little bit of a difference here. So about just over 3 minutes on the Nanotech, nearly 3.5 on the 1300 Tattu, and the 1550 is coming down. It's going to be over 4 minutes, which in theory looks like a sort of better performance than on the lighter quad. In reality, of course, because my flying was all a little bit different and sort of mixed, I wouldn't say this performs differently between quads. It's just different quads fly differently and use power in different ways. So as this sort of drops towards the end, I'm probably backing off. I'm not doing so much more full throttle stuff because I'm just going to destroy the battery. But yeah, at the end of it, we get like 4 minutes 30. But in real terms, let's call it 30 extra seconds of good hard flying.
Well, what conclusions can we draw from that? And there will be some that are saying, hey, you can't just go out and fly these. You need to put them through a certain amount of cycles before they come to their best. And that might be the case, but I'm a realist. I haven't got time to sit down and charge these up and discharge them 10 times. I'm just going to go out and fly stuff, and that's what I do with batteries. I just go out and fly. And generally speaking, anecdotal evidence aside, I generally get the best performance out of them when I start, as opposed to sort of 10, 20 flights later. So I'm basing my conclusion on what I've just flown, but of course if something changes further along the line, I'll be sure to let you know. And I kind of feel like I've been stuck in the olden days about using 1300s. When I was flying, only about 3-4 years ago, I was using something like this. Look, bull nose props, 2-bladed, and Cobra 2204 motors, which is quite a difference in power consumption between something big and heavy like this Diatone Crusader with the 2306s do 2450, and there's 2307s out there and bigger. I think it's fair to say that motors aren't going to get smaller, and the power needed to push those motors is more and more. So me thinking, oh, I'm using these 1300s because I've always used 1300s is probably the wrong thing to do. There are exceptions to the rule, of course. The racers with the ultra lightweight stuff wanting to keep things as light as possible will be using the smallest possible battery they can do to go round their laps for 2 minutes or whatever they're doing. But for everybody else, I kind of feel like, oh, I should be buying at least 1550 size batteries and not these 1300s anymore, and possibly bigger. And I'm interested to know what you guys are flying, or you guys that are just flying quads. I say recreationally. I use the term freestyle, but that's kind of a catch-all for just basically meaning I'm just flying around a field doing stuff as opposed to racing. So I feel like 1550 was no problem. Perhaps we could go bigger, 1600, maybe 1800. Interested to know what you guys are doing. The only thing I'd say, and obviously this was kind of a battery review. Tattu sent me these batteries, so I said take a look at them. And the 1300 didn't perform as well as I was expecting, and I feel that's because all I was able to do was get the 45C version, whereas the 1550 was the 75C version. So if you're going to use the 1300s, I would stay away from the 45C and go for the 75C, and I feel that would perform a lot better and not sag as much. But from my point of view, I'll be looking to get at least 1500s for flying 5-inch quads meantime. And I found these Tattu batteries quite good. Not so much this one because the C rating was low. This 1550 was pretty good though, so yeah, I'll have some links of course to where you can get those down below, and check them out if you like. And of course I wasn't able to put these batteries up against many others, so if you fly with these and they're good and what you're using and what sort of thing you're getting out of them, let me know down below in the comments. I'll be pleased to hear from you. In the meantime, I hope that was useful, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.